Okay, welcome back. Today we're going to make a Bluetooth speaker enclosure. I'm going to make it up out of small scraps that I have in the shop, and they're bunches of small pieces of wood. It's wangay, purple heart, and a couple pieces of oak. My buddy is friends with somebody that does flooring, and he has these unusual cutoffs, lots of little skinny pieces of wangay and purple heart, and so he gives them to me, and this is the first opportunity I thought to use them. Cut them into small strips in preparation to making sort of like a butcher block chunk of wood. And you'll see we're going to do a simple enclosure. It's not going to involve too much joinery. So this is just a way to use small skinny scraps of wood. I'm just gluing them up in 3 inches so that I could pass them through the saw. And that's why I'm making sections of 3 inches. And I make a little bit more than I need just in case. And I'm just clamping them, and you notice I put down blue tape so that I don't end up sticking to the table. And then I have a clean piece of scrap wood that I'm working on so that I have everything glues together flat. Big steel weights keep them flat against the table. There's lots of ways of gluing up a glue up like that, but you notice I glued them up in sections, 2 3-inch sections and one whatever was left over. And now maybe joining, you can say I'm joining, but I'm just taking really small cuts at a time. And you notice I move it over just a couple of millimeters, and then I'm taking small passes. And I'm joining. I'm just getting rid of the glue and the inconsistencies and making those surfaces nice and flat. And now I got them nice and flat, and now I'm going to split them, and I'm raising the saw blade each time, a little bit each time. I don't want to try and take one deep pass because I probably burn it, so I'm taking small passes and I'm flipping it over and cutting from the top down and from the bottom up. And there, I'm finally cut through. Now 3 pieces become 6. See that there? And you can see I used wangay and purple heart, so there's kind of an alternating darkness to those colors. And now I'm going to cut this little pile into thirds, so I end up with, ultimately I'm going to have 9 pieces of wood. Started out with 2, now I have 9. And that little extra piece I ended up not needing, so it's just the 2 bigger pieces I'm starting to use here. And I'm basically making a cube, or just a big monolith, you might say. And because this is a glue up with a lot of little pieces, I'm gluing together 3 sections at a time. Just using some blue tape to keep them together so they don't slide all over the place. And I want to try and use as much of the wood as possible. And so here I just tape them in sections of 3, clamp them together, and I'm also making sure that I'm having the checker pattern I want. And then I let this dry for a few hours. And once that's dry, I unmount it, take the tape off. Might have been the next morning. And so here I am the next day, peeling all the tape off, and then I glue those sections together. And then I have my chunk of wood that I need. I really love these old-timey screw clamps. You can really torque down on your piece. And the trick to that is loosening up that outside one, the one that's furthest away from the work in this picture. By loosening that up, it pivots the jaws really tightly closed. And I don't have a vise in my shop, so you see I'm using these screw clamps. I'm holding the work, and then there's another clamp just off camera holding that clamp to the table. And so that's one way to use your clamps as a vise. And now once I got one smooth side, again I'm just using the table saw as a joiner. Pivoting off that one smooth side that I did with the low angle block plane there, and I get all my sides square. And it actually was quite square. And now I'm just cleaning up the edges, and there's my chunk. And I'm just using a little piece of flat wood, and the reason I put the sandpaper at a diagonal like that is because you get the longest stroke from corner to corner, and the other advantage is that you don't grab the paper as easily. If that piece of square wood ran across the square edge of the paper, you're likely to rip it and tear it. By having it approach the edge of the wood at an angle and the paper at an angle, the paper doesn't get caught up and peeled up. So try that next time you do that. Hit it at an angle. I'm just using some water poly just to close the grain. I want to tighten the grain up for the drill. I don't want, because usually when you hit it with a drill, if it doesn't really have poly on it, you might end up chipping open the edge of the drill hole. So I just want a nice clean drill hole. So that was it's a few hours later. And drilling into that end grain is a little dangerous. I'm making a wider cut first, and using the same center hole, I'm making so that one might have been 2 inches, and now this is 1 7/8. And you see I end up with like a little bevel there, or a little step down, and you'll see why in a minute. And now this is the front where the speaker is actually going to live. And the electronics goes in the bottom, and the speaker goes in that hole that I'm drilling right now. And you see I connect them, and now I have basically an enclosure or a box. Done simply. And I'm just waxing it. You could imagine how simple this project would be if you just use one chunk of wood and not try to make a butcher block like I just did. And so now you see why I do the step down in the bottom, because I don't want the electronics to hit the table first. I want the chunk of wood to hit the table first. This is a real simple project to connect. You just plug them in together, and now you see how that the electronics component is inset. And there, I am done. Let's go put it on the charger for about 20 minutes. And I got a very special podcast live. I hope this inspires you to make something similar or something interesting and get yourself a Bluetooth speaker kit. Thank you, Rockler. Hope you enjoyed this.
I'm Aaron Claggett, and this is Jimmy DiResta.
Hello.
And David Pachuto.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. This is Making It, in case you didn't know what you were listening to. And yeah, we're here with episode 50, so hopefully we'll make this one special somehow.